All right, today I'm going to take the OPZ and plug it into the iPad and use this software called miRack, which is basically virtual modular. Why would I do this? Well, if you're getting a little bored with the synth voices and sample engines on the OPZ, then this gives you a whole new palette of sound creation tools. And there's a pretty easy way to connect it, so I figured I would just kind of walk through that. So for one, you're going to want to connect your audio out of the OPZ. Turn it on. Second, you want to connect the USB from the OPZ into your iPad. And just for your information, miRack is this application spelled MIRACK, and it has a whole bunch of modules that you can basically do modular within your iPhone or your iPad. It's really deep. There's a lot of like custom modules that people make. You can have all sorts of oscillators, do FM filters, you name it. It has a whole lot in here. So basically, all right. So I have the USB connected to the camera connection cable here. This adapter. I don't have to supply external power, and then within miRack, there's this. You can choose to have like MIDI connect into it. And from there, there's a CV, control voltage. I'm not going to get really into the details of how I created this patch or the patches here, but I'll go through the quick process of how you get the OPZ audio and MIDI routed and working. You can use the OPZ as an audio interface, and it's automatically detected when you connect it to the iPad as an audio interface. But you won't hear any audio from the iPad until you do something here. So if you look in the manual, you have to hit this button and then choose 3. And now what that should allow is I should be hearing some stuff. So okay, so I have channel 5, MIDI channel 5 here, which I'm using my channel 5 on my OPZ to trigger. And I created a patch here. It's basically this FM module, and I set it to play minor ninth chords every time you play a key. Let me turn it up a little bit. Oops. And you can also have each one of these strips of, the 16 different MIDI CC controls on your OPZ. You can have them assigned to control a whole bunch of parameters on here. And so I already mapped out some of those. And I guess maybe the easiest thing for me to do is just show you a quick demo. All right, so kick drum and the synth. So the synth that you're hearing is this here. I added a filter, and this lets me sweep through that. And just to reiterate, all the sound that you're hearing is coming from this modular software, and it's routed through the OPZ, coming through the audio out here, and is mixed together with some of the onboard sounds. So that kick drum you're hearing here is just a kick drum I sequenced that's on the kick drum track. And these other controls here I mapped out to change the timbre of this module. Let's see what else. thought I mapped these out to something. I'm not really hearing too much. And then I have this mapped to a delay effect. This has a delay on here. So you should hear the delay now. Reverb. And I wanted to add a chorus here because that, you know, the chords sound really good if you add a little chorus to them. Another quick shortcut here is if you want to manage the gain of this module on the OPZ, you press this button here, and then you can press this to increase or decrease while you're holding this button the volume of the patch. So I'll just add the snare. So snare and the cymbals are both native tracks here on the OPZ. Okay, and yeah, as I mentioned, I'm using channel 5 here because it has some pretty powerful, if I use MIDI channel 5, this here, I can use some really extensive sequencing capabilities of the OPZ. So using some of the random and probability-oriented tricks, which really makes the OPZ shine, in my opinion. As opposed to using channel 14, which you can use, but you lose out on a lot of the probability-oriented MIDI sequencing. So this would be like MIDI channel track 14 here. So this is like your spare MIDI channel on the OPZ. You could use that to kind of sequence any number of things via MIDI. But yeah, as I mentioned here, I'm using the B channel, the number 5. Now, there's a couple things to note about when you do use one of these channels. So you have to set it up a certain way. So according to the OPZ manual, if you want to, so if you hold this down, you can mute the track, but it will still, this basically mutes the track, but it still sends MIDI. But, I mean, if you play the keys, it still plays MIDI, but if you press play, it won't send out the MIDI of the sequence. So there's a special feature here on the OPZ where you basically hold down the mixer button, hold down the shift button here, and then press its channel. And what that does is it mutes the audio coming from the OPZ on that channel, but it also sends out the sequence that you have, the MIDI sequence from that channel. So if I press play, you should hear it now. But I also ran into another issue. So this, see these are all yellow. This is the volume that's associated with the track here. And what I found I had to do is I have to turn this all the way down. And I don't have this control mapped to anything because what was happening is if you use these two controls, so this is like effects N1, effects N2 on this channel or any of these 8 channels, it will still send that that instrument to the effects, and you'll hear them in the effects if you turn them up, even though that track is muted in this way. So that's not what I wanted. I wanted to just use this and this as like as an effect control on here. So what I found I had to do is just turn this the track volume all the way down and don't use this for anything else. And when I say the using the probability and the track tricks, let me just demonstrate. So for instance, I'll go to a new track. I'm going to do the special mute where it still sends the MIDI out on this track. Turn these down. And let's see, so let's make this pretty short sequence, just 5 steps. Okay, you can hear something. Let's open up the filter a little bit. Let's do step 1. Let's try. All right, so now it's playing that sequence. Let me slow it down to half speed. And oh yeah, I can also play with the envelopes here. Yeah, attack, decay, sustain, and release. So here, increase the decay. I'm gonna open up the filter some more. All right, now this is where it gets interesting. So I'm going to press Shift, and now I'm going to use one of these tricks. So I'm going to have it just kind of play, maybe it's choosing different notes now. If I press 6, it kind of pushes it to another octave, but maybe I want to keep it a little tamer. Or maybe I don't want that at all. Maybe I just want it on one note. All right, and let's see, maybe I want to add like that basically doubles the note. Now this one will play kind of like random probability of whether it'll play. And then you can kind of do that with every note in the series. Let's do that. All right, now it's like kind of unpredictable, but still has some structure to it. And then I can also change the timer on just one note. Maybe close the filter a little bit on that one. Okay, so now it's a little bit more interesting. Maybe I'll extend the decay a little bit. And just for giving it some kind of structure, let's find a kick drum. Just do. There you go. Now back to this track, and I'm going to give it some effects. Yeah, when you change the parameters here, you don't see any of that reflected on here. The knobs don't move or anything. You just have to remember what's mapped to what. But already it's interesting. You can come up with some cool results and use the full features of the OPZ sequencer to change the parameters on each step and have that reflected here and use some of the fun probability stuff. So already it's very enjoyable. It just took me a couple of hours to come up with like kind of a recipe for how the patch would be laid out, and the idea was I would try to have these two knobs similar to how they work on here, control elements of the timbre, and this would be controlling the filter sweep, frequency sweep. this would be resonance. So increase resonance and sweep the frequencies. And so there's a filter module on here. Where did I put it? That's the filter module. This is the delay module, reverb. This is a mixer I'm using to kind of mix the effects. This is the chorus filter. Not hearing that come through. Oh yeah, I guess it is coming through a little bit. Yeah, and what you can also use some of these, like I forget what they're called, like different tricks. So if you hold the shift button down, this extends the decay. Okay, so that's a quick demo of that. So what I'd like to do is show another patch. Let's see, I'm going to open existing, and I like this one, this wavetable, virtual wavetable. And so this is basically a patch I created where I mapped out these controls already to different modules. Let's see how this works. Maybe I'll just come up with a new sequence and do the similar thing where it's shift. And let me make sure that volume's all the way down. There we go. Okay, so let's do another sort of sequence. Just try to keep it short. Okay, so simple sequence. Let's see what's going on here. Let's check the envelope. And let's mess with the timbre. Now this is really cool because you can see, you can run through a whole bank of wave shapes here and see it move in real time. And then this one kind of sweeps through that. So you get some instantly very different sounds coming out here. So it's really satisfying to have this visual here to actually see what's going on. And there's a lot of wave shapes in this module, so it's quite cool. And like I said before, you can let's find a better. And it kind of I have it on the setting where it gracefully morphs from wave shape to wave shape. So kudos to whoever made this module. I just realized this is a lot of fun. Okay, now for kicks, I'm gonna just use each step to kind of so already like you can do some rad stuff with the step components. So I just reduced the frequency on the filter, and it's kind of still pushing it because I sequenced in individual steps with different filter settings. Okay, I'll try not to make you a little crazy. Let's do a longer. Let's see. That might drive me a little crazy too. See how plucky we can get it. And I have these controls mapped to some other things. Yeah, I think they're mapped to something in the swarm settings over here. So you get so much character just mapping each of these each of these knobs to different parameters just within this one. I also added this another like actual oscillator module here, so you can do a blend. I was inspired by the Pro 3, and just knowing it has like wavetable plus oscillator, and I'm like, oh man, I wonder if I could do that in here. Well, you could imagine, you can get close, but it's not gonna be the same. I'm gonna map this in this patch to delay speed, but it gets really extreme. But once you have the effects on it, let's see what happens when you kind of... It's so random, it's awesome. It's delightful. You don't know what's gonna happen, but you don't know what you're gonna get out of it. Let's see, I'll give this some more. yeah, so it's a lot of fun. I was getting a little bored with the sounds on here, so I really wanted to figure out a way I could make it the OPZ more interesting. And yeah, it's just like literally this USB cable connected via camera connection kit here, and then I can get this is my sort of audio interface hub. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'll be working on some more miRack patches moving forward, and yeah, if people are interested, I might do a tutorial video if there's enough interest on how to create and set things up from scratch for your OPZ within miRack, and I'll make these 2 patches available for download too. Yeah, so that's it for today. I hope you are having a good time out there.